Hello and welcome to today's video, which will be talking about Google Classroom and the different ways in which we can utilise that to its full potential. So this part of the video I'm going to be going through personal settings as well as class settings. So we can look at email notifications for each individual class. We can also look at classroom settings itself to tidy up the work, tidy up the stream, and also the options between students and or staff just posting on the stream as well. So let's get started. So let's look at the Google Classroom settings first. So you can do this for each individual classroom depending on the learning outcomes of that classroom. So you can go into any classroom that you want to change settings for, and you can click on the settings cog in the top right hand corner. By clicking on the settings cog, you can rename the class if you want to. I've got my domain as the class description there and the section for Key Stage 3, but you can change all of those options if you want to. You've got class code, so that is how students normally join your Google Classroom if you haven't already got a sync platform in place. So you could click on that to display it, to copy it, reset or disable it. So most of the time, if we're in a normal scenario, we'd have that up on the screen and students would join that using the code. As I say, most of us have got sort of sync platforms in place that are matching our timetables at the moment, but that's normally how you do it. We've got a stream option here, so we've got students can post and comment currently, so they can post on stream announcements that I make for them. They can also post a stream announcement of their own. Now, this may not be suitable for your classroom. You may just want to keep it so you post content and they comment to it. So you've got the option here of students can only comment or only teachers can post and comment. So it keeps the stream nice and tidy so only you can post. Now, in this instance, I'm going to change it to students can only comment because I'd like them to look at comment back to what I'm asking them to do. You've got classwork on the stream. So normally yours will show condensed notifications. That's how it will show up as standard. Now, let me show you what that looks like just while we're there. So if I've got that on as it is, now scrolling through my stream page, which is where I am now, you'll see I have my announcements and my classwork appearing here. So it's a mix of both the announcements and the classwork. So students may get confused with where their work's actually being set. Now, I always tell my students to go to the classwork tab at the top to find their work, just here, because I find that's a lot more organised and you can see exactly the topics and the work here. So that's where I tell my students to go. So a way to tidy up your stream and make it just for announcements is, again, going back to your settings and scrolling down to general. And I turn my classwork on the stream to hide notifications. So that only allows for your announcements to appear on there. So you also have two other settings here which are off as default. So show deleted items. So only teachers can view deleted items. That's currently off. I've never personally used it, but you could turn it on to other teachers can see those assignments that have been deleted. Guardian summaries. So this is a way to send parents sort of summaries of what their kids and students have done. Again, this will have to be set up by your domain if you're in an academy trust. We don't use them, but it's something that you could use to send updates to parents about how students are getting on. You've also got the Google Meet integration with Classroom, which we're going to do in a later video. But you can organise a Google Meet directly from your settings here. And you have a marking box here, so you have mark calculation. So overall mark calculation, you can choose a grading system. So you can do total points or weighted by category or no overall mark. So I normally do self-marking quizzes or I leave feedback for my students. But if this is purely for maybe coursework and you'd like to mark them out of a certain number, this is a great tool for you to use. And you have the option here to show overall marks to students as well if you want to. And you can add mark categories down below. Let's just get rid of my box here. So you could set a mark category there out of a certain amount of points, but I'm not going to do that now. So that's your class settings. Now let's look at the personal settings for Google Classroom as well. So the way to do that, you can go to any Google Classroom for this. You click the 3 lines in the top left-hand corner. Now I'm just going to move my screen over here a minute. If you click the 3 lines in the top left corner, you'll see all of your classes then appear. Now it automatically loads on classes at the top. If you just click the up arrow, it will take you all the way down to the settings tab here. Now by clicking on the settings tab, this is your personal settings for Google Classroom. So you can see here, I've got my profile picture on, and I currently have email notifications off, but I can turn those back on. Now you have the option of, whether you want to receive notifications for comments on the posts, comments that mention you, private comments on the notes, and equally you can turn any of those off that you want to. Classes that you're enrolled in, to work and other posts from teachers. Now maybe you're in lots of different classrooms and don't want to be notified every time a teacher posts an assignment for their students. Maybe that's particularly useful for SLT, so you can just turn that off. Returned work and marks from your teachers. Invitations to join classes as a student. Due dates for your work. Now again, you can turn any of these on or keep the ones on that you want. This is very personal to you. You can customize it as you want. You also have classes that you teach, so late submissions of student work. I've personally turned that off. Resubmissions of student work. Invitations to co-teach classes or schedule post published or failed. Now, I've personally turned that off because I always go in and check anyway, but you can have that on as an automation process, but personally I don't use that. Now, again, there's no right or wrong answer here. You can have this set up as you wish. Now, you see class notifications here as well. So by clicking on the drop-down arrow there, all your Google Classrooms will appear. So you can see I've got notifications on for those classes that I teach, but classes that I've been added to that I don't teach, I've turned notifications off for. So I don't want to hear any notifications about any of those classes. I don't want to see whether students have posted their work late or if they've made a comment to their teacher, because I'm not their teacher. So I've just turned all notifications off for them. So it just tidies up my inbox and doesn't allow me to get a lot of unnecessary emails.
Thanks for that, Ben. Okay, so now we've got our classroom sorted out and our notifications and settings correct. We're going to look at how we go about actually setting a piece of work and how we set an assignment. So I'm here on the classwork page in my demo classroom, and first thing you'll notice is that down the left-hand side here, we've got a list of topics, and that corresponds to any topics that we create down here. So any of these topics will appear over there. You'll also notice that I've got an archived assignments topic because Google Classroom doesn't have its own native archive at the moment. So any topics or any questions that I've finished with, I can move into this archived assignment at the bottom of the page out of the way to keep things tidy. You'll also notice that some are greyed out, and that's because they're draft and haven't been published yet. Okay. The other thing you can see is you've got a direct link here to the Google Calendar for the classroom and a direct link to the class drive where all of our documents will go. The templates that we use to set tasks and also all of our student work will also go into that class drive folder. Okay. So we're going to come up here first of all and we're going to click create, and you can see that there are several options. Down the bottom here, you've got the option to create a topic, and you can create that here or you can create it later. It really doesn't matter. Okay. You can edit a topic at any time, and you can delete a topic as long as there isn't a task in there. You have to move the tasks out first, otherwise the whole topic and the tasks might be deleted. So the first thing we're going to look at is setting a normal assignment. Okay. So this opens up in the assignment window for it, and I'm going to set an assignment for my class at the start of the year, and I'm just going to call it Introduce Yourself. I'm going to include the instructions here, so I'm going to say open the attachment, read the instructions, complete all aspects of the task, and then return here to hand in. And that's a really important point for later on. Okay. Now, at the moment, you can see that I'm going to assign this to all students, although I do have a choice. There's not many students in my test classroom, but I could choose not to assign it to certain students. Okay, so I can differentiate that way. I can choose whether I want to assign it to more than one class at a time, as long as I don't want to schedule it at the moment. I can choose the number of points I want to make available for it. So I'm going to make this a 4-point task. I can choose a due date just from picking here. I can choose a time if I want as well. And I can choose a topic. Now, this is introducing yourself. We haven't really got an appropriate topic for that. So I'm going to say introductions is going to be the name of the topic for this. Now, I can add a rubric, and we'll come on to those later on, and originality reports as well, but we're not going to worry about those too much at the moment, okay? So I've got my task set, and I've got a choice of either creating a brand new document for the students to complete, or adding one that I've already got. So I'm going to go to my Google Drive, and I'm going to just search here for introduce and see what that comes up with. There we go. We've got lots of different things here. See if there's anything useful. Here we go. GEG UK slow introduction. There's a template. Look, that's the one I'm going to use. So I'm going to pop that in there. Just going to move myself there to add this. So I'll add this to the assignment. Okay, and you can see it's there as a template, but at the moment the students can only view the file, and I want them to have their own copy for this purpose. I don't have to do that. If, for example, all students were working on the same file collaboratively, or a group of students, you could let all of them edit it, the same document, or if you only want them to be able to read it, you can make it view, but I want them to have their own copy of this. So I'm going to make a copy for each student, and that will make a copy of introduce yourself with their name in the title. So it's going to be really easy to find it. Okay, and then I'm just going to assign that task there. It takes a couple of seconds because it's generating lots of documents for us. And we can see here's our introductions topic that's now appeared, and here's our introduce yourself task. And if I click on this task, I can reread the instructions. I can see who it's been assigned to, whether anyone has turned it in yet, and I can go and have a look at the individual documents. Okay, so that's the first stage of setting an assignment. The second stage, we come back up to create, is to set a quiz assignment, and these are really useful if we want to be able to get Google to do a lot of the work for us and mark everything for us. So we might do it as an exit ticket, for example, at the end of a lesson, and this might be complete this exit ticket to mark your lesson as finished. Okay, and they don't get signed off until they've done it. Okay, again, I'm assigning it to all students. I'm not going to worry at the moment about what points I'm going to add to it. I'm going to give it a due date again of then. Don't have to give a time. I'm still going to give introductions as a topic, and I'm going to go now into our blank quiz, and I'm just going to create an exit ticket with 3 simple questions. Okay, the first thing I'm going to do in settings, I'm going to collect email addresses, and that way I don't need to ask students for their names. I'm going to restrict it to my domain, so it's only students at school can answer it. If I want to, I'm not going to on this one, but you could do that. But I am going to limit to 1 response, and I'm not going to let them submit it, edit it after they've submitted or anything like that. My first question then is going to be, what did I ask you to do in the first task? Okay, and that might be a multiple choice question that I'd make a required question. And I'm going to say there, what did I ask you to do? Let's make that, what did I ask you to do first of all in the first task? And I'm going to make that say, give your name. Oops. Give your name. I'm going to say, add a photo. I'm going to say what food you like, or other. Okay, so that's become a multiple choice question, and here I've got the option to make an answer key. Now, the first thing I actually did was I add them to ask them to add a photo. So that I'm going to mark as the correct answer, and I'm going to assign 1 point for that. I can then add answer feedback, and any incorrect answers go back to the students with some feedback. So you need to pay attention to the order of tasks. take another look. And if I wanted to, I could reattach that same document here by using the link, or I could add a video, or I could link to a website, or anything I want to do to maybe add a little bit of clarification for a wrong answer, or some extension for somebody who's got a right answer. So I'm going to save that, okay? And just click that as done. I'm going to add a second question now, similar sort of thing. What colour tie was I wearing in the video? Just to let students know that it's important that they're watching. And I tend to do this quite often because it's an element of engagement, and they know there's always going to be some kind of question like this. So red, blue, pink, and no tie. Okay, so it's a bit of a, again, it's a multiple choice, but they've got the chance, and the actual answer was no tie. And add answer feedback. I can say for incorrect answers, I was wearing a t-shirt. A tie would have made even me look sillier than normal. Okay, and particularly during distance learning, I think a little bit of humour with the students is quite important. Okay, so I add that in there, mark it as done, and that's our, an example of our exit ticket. So I'm going to close that now. I'm just going to rename this exit ticket. We're going to close it, and it's actually here. So if I was to click on this again and reopen it, there it is. There's our exit ticket all set up. Okay. Now you'll notice that what I've also got the option here is the chance to import grades. So as students complete this, I get the option to import their grades straight into my classroom mark book. So I'm going to take them up on that offer, and I'm going to assign this task. Okay. Brilliant. So now we've got 2 tasks assigned. We've also got the option to ask a question. Now I use these for check-ins, very simply. Little things like how are they getting on? So it might be, how are you feeling this week? And it's a good way to get the students engaged, and it's kind of like a starter activity when they first come into the classroom. Okay, so how are you feeling this week? And I might make that a multiple choice again, and I might do it by emojis, or I might do it by words. So and make it a nice straightforward option. Again, put it under the same topic, give it the same due date, so it's all got to be done by the same time. And this, because it's a simple question, I'm just going to give 1 mark for it. Okay, and I'm going to ask that question as well. And the good thing about the questions is it provides you with a breakdown by answers later on. So you can see now we've got our 3 questions in there, or our 3 different types of assignments. We could also add material such as resources and things like that. So maybe a scheme of work or a mark scheme. And you can reuse posts, which Ben will talk about a little bit later on. Okay, so that's how you set up different assignments in your Google Classroom. And if you've set your settings up, like Ben suggested, we don't see any of them there, so it keeps our stream nice and clear. Okay, and I'll hand back over to Ben.
Thanks, Darren. So now we're going to look at how to hand piece of the work in. We're going to look at that from a student point of view as well as a teacher's point of view as well. So you can see from both sides how the work and the process works. So I'm currently in my teacher account, and I've set the work for today as Remarkable Lives. So I can click on that. Now I can see from here that I've got, no students have handed that in, but I've assigned that to 2 students. So the 2 students have currently got that work but have not handed it in to me. Now it doesn't mean it's not complete. Students sometimes have completed the work but not handed it in to you. So you can check that very easily by going to the assigned, clicking on that, and you'll see both my students appear here. So I can click on their individual work and see whether they've actually done anything on the work. As I say, they might have done it but not handed it in to you. Now here you can also leave a mark for them and a comment to them as well. So you could say to them, please complete this work. So I can see this student has not currently done any work on this. So I can post a comment to them just there. Now that's personal to them, only they can see that. So it's a great way of giving feedback to students and giving them a little bit of help that not everybody else will see. Now let's look at this from a student point of view then. Now you can see I'm in the same Google Classroom here, and I've got the Remarkable Lives Challenge at the top here. Now, by clicking on that, you can see from a student point of view straight away, I don't see how many people have handed it in or who's been assigned it. I can just see that task has been assigned to me. Now, they'd have to click View Assignment at the bottom, and you can see they've got their instructions as the main body of text here. They can also add a comment to the class, which everybody can see. They could also comment to you privately, so only you can see that. Maybe they're asking for a particular bit of help or a clue on the piece of work. You can also see the comments back from teachers in this bank here as well. Now, they also have your work tab at the top. Now, if you've set them a template like I have, they can click on that template from here and work directly on the document. Now, if they've already done it at home, maybe on a different Google Doc, or they've done it on a piece of paper and they'd like to upload a photo to you, that's very simple as well. So they can click Add or Create here. You can upload from Google Drive, a link from a website, a file from your computer or phone, or you can create a new docs, a new slides, a new sheets, or new drawings. So there's lots of different ways that students can upload that work to you. Now, in this instance, let's pretend that we're going to do it on the template. So I can click on the template just there. Now, this currently doesn't have any work on from a student's point of view, so I'm just going to put this is now complete. Now they have the option here to turn in at the top. Now that means hand in. They can hand in directly from the document, which is a great feature. But a lot of students at the moment are just clicking this share button and they're sharing it with your email address. Now, that's all well and good, but it doesn't show as handed in the classroom. And you also have access to that document already through the Google Classroom as a teacher. So there's not a lot of point in students doing that. Now, they can hand in from here, or they could go back to viewing their assignment here, and they could hand in here using this button. So if I'm going to hand it in, it says, are you sure you want to hand it in? Yes, I am. Fantastic. So once that's handed in, the access then changes for students. They can click on their document, but they can only view it. They cannot edit it from this point on once it's submitted to you. Now, if they've decided they'd like to make any more changes to it, fine. They can go back into this page here by clicking View Assignment and unsubmitting their work. It says, are you sure? Yes, I'm sure. And then you can go in and you can re-edit it again. That's really important to note because students may be saying to you they can't access their work. It's because they've handed it in. They cannot make any changes. Alternatively, from a staff's point of view, if the student is unable to unsubmit it for whatever reason, you can hand it back to them and give them the access back. So let's look at how to do that from the staff's point of view. I'm going to go back to my teacher account here. And you can see straight away this is now updated. So I've got one student who's handed it in and one student has been assigned. So I can see the handed in work here, and I can also click on that, have a look at what the student's done. I can now see that he's got complete work, so I'm just going to give him 100 out of 100. Fantastic, and leave a comment as well done. Now, you can see up here I've got the option to return. So maybe you've left some feedback and you'd like them to go back and edit that. You can return it from here. Or you have a drop-down arrow. If they've submitted multiple submissions in this one task, like a Google Doc and the Google Slides, you can return multiple submissions from here. Alternatively, you can go back to your Google Classroom view and you can click the tick box next to that particular student, and then you have return at the top here. So I can return to students and say, please make the changes I've left in the document. Okay, and click return. Now students will then be able to edit it from their side again. So you don't have to rely on students being able to unsubmit. You can return from your side, and you can see there it then says marked for me. So I've marked that piece of work. So that student has done work, but I've sent them feedback back, and I've asked them to improve their work. So it doesn't mean they haven't done it. They have, but you've left some feedback for them. So if you're doing an engagement sheet, maybe that might be an amber or a green. Okay, depending on how your academy works.
So now we know all about handing in assignments on Google Classroom. We're going to look at how we can go about marking really efficiently. So I'm going to go back into my demonstration classroom here. The first thing I'm going to do is on this left-hand side, you'll notice there's a to-do list. And this lists all of the tasks that you need to do, okay? All of the things that still need to be marked. And obviously, this is just a demonstration classroom, but you can see here, for example, it was assigned to 2 people. One has had it returned to them because they've handed it in and I've sent it back. One has had it assigned but haven't handed it in yet. So then you might go ahead and look at this one, okay? So we can say, here's this one. This was me working as a student, just for demonstration purposes. Completed this and had it returned. And Toby hasn't handed his in yet. Okay, so I'm going to take a look at this one here. And the first thing we're going to notice is down the right-hand side here, we've got some rubrics. Now, this rubric was something that I created when I created the assignment. So we'll look at that in a second. And we can also see that the student has given us a comment here. I don't get what you mean, sir, because I'd previously put some comments on. Okay, so I'd added the fact that this was past standard at best, and they need to be looking back at the rubric for merit, which they've got access to as well. And I've put a couple of voice notes in there, which I'm not going to worry about at the moment. Okay, so within the rubric, the students are able to see all of this and can click on the drop down to see what constitutes a past standard and what constitutes a merit and what constitutes a distinction. So I've added all of that in there, and they'll get 1 point if they manage to fulfill that. They'll get 2 more if they manage to fulfill the merit, and they'll get 6 points in total if they manage to fulfill the distinction criteria. So they can always refer back to this in terms of feedback. And I might also consider adding in other comments as well, depending on what I'm allowed to do. So for example, the question that was set was to how does Tesco fulfill the fundamental principles of customer service? Tesco's make sure everyone keeps 2 meters distance at the moment. Okay, so I might click on that and add a comment in there and say that's a good point, but very much related to this point in time. Could you be more detailed with regards to normal procedures? Okay, just as a suggestion, and I can add that as a comment. Now I've added that as a comment, what I can also do is add it to my comment bank. So if I click on the 3 dots here, the traffic lights, you'll see I get the option to add to comment bank. And I'm going to add that into my bank as it is there. And it then appears here in my comment bank. All of my comments that I might use appear here. And I can build this up and build it up further on. Okay. So let's go on and see what else they've done. I don't really get what you mean, so can you help? So I might comment here, for example, something like, you need to revisit the rubric and explain the impact of the actions taken by Tesco staff. Okay? Now that might be quite detailed for this particular topic, okay? Or it might be a more generic one that we need to think about. So everyone keeps 2 meters distance. It might be something like here. I might add a comment that says an introduction would be good here, okay? Because I've gone straight into it. And again, all of these I can click and add to my comment bank, okay? Now what that means is, if I want to reuse those comments at any point, like all of these here, all I need to do is just start typing. So I might say, for example, next steps here, come out, let's just say here, something about cheap brands are harder to get at the moment because of the store layout. I might decide to comment here that what he really should do is share his work with his partner. And as soon as I've typed in share, Google Classroom is reading my comment bank and has found one that they think they should possibly use. So I'm just going to click on that and it does it for me. Okay, so you can build up your comment bank and use that in any particular assignment that you want to. You know, spelling mistakes, grammar, punctuation. You just start typing and it will bring those through for you. Okay, and then you can go through all of those. You can then let's just for argument's sake say that the student has now improved their work and they've now fulfilled the merit criteria. I can click here and say that that's now merit, and I can return it to them. Okay. So they then get the update on all of that. They'll get the comments, they'll get the fact that they're now working at merit, but still the fact that they're now going to go have a look at how they might then get that to a distinction standard. Okay, and the record of all the comments lives just up the top here in this comment bank. So any comments that have ever been left in here are always there, even if the student comes along and says, right, okay, yeah, I've done that and I've resolved that, and I've done that and I've resolved that. They still show in the comment bank. So you've got that ongoing dialogue of the feedback you gave and the improvements the students gave as a result of it. Here we've got the rubric, and this is how it's set out. So you can just add and create your own. You can just edit those, and you can export them into Google Sheets as well, and then you can reuse them with another topic. So for example, close that now. If I wanted to use a different assignment, say for example, I wanted to use that same rubric with a different assignment, maybe it was our introduce yourself assignment, I could go back into that, even though I've posted it, I can view the assignment and the instructions, I can check what I did there, and I can still edit. And if I want to, just takes a second to load, I can add a rubric if I want, and I can create a new one. I can import it from my sheets, or I can reuse one, and it will pull up all of the rubrics I've got, and I might choose to use that one, and it adds that rubric in for me. Okay, so really good for setting up maybe for something like Key Stage 3, or for BTEC style work, where you might have students who are working towards or working at or working beyond a particular grade or level. Okay.
Hello. So now we're going to be looking at how to reuse a post from another Google Classroom. This may be particularly useful if you are teaching the same content to multiple different classes. So all you have to do is post that assignment to one Google Classroom. And after that, you can reuse it. You don't have to keep doing it over and over again. Now, there is limitations to that, but I'm going to go through that when we get to it. So, for example, we'll use the same example as earlier. I created a Remarkable Lives challenge for my students today. Now, I've already set that inside this Google Classroom. Now, what I'd like to do is I'd like to put that in another classroom. So I'm going to go to my classrooms here and select my demo classroom here. Now, currently, I have no work in here. I'd like to put that Remarkable Lives challenge in here, which is great. I can do that without having to go through the same process of writing it all out, attaching everything again. By going to the Classwork tab, I can click Create. Now I have the option for assignment, quiz, question, material, or reuse in a post. So I'm going to click Reuse Post. That's going to ask me for what classroom I'd like to reuse a post from. So I'm going to click Music Master Classroom. Now it shows me all of the work that I've set for that particular classroom. So I'm going to click on a Remarkable Lives challenge because that's a task I'd like to reuse and post into this into another group. Now you can see here I've create new copies of all attachments. Make sure that's ticked, especially if you've got attachments on it. So for me, I've got a Google Doc on there, as you saw in the last clip. So I'd like to make a new copy of that for these students to use. It won't copy the work that students have already done. It will only copy that template. Now, once you click Reuse in the bottom right here, it will load up with the assignment in which you can edit if you want to. So here you could edit the instructions if you want to. You could also edit if you want the students to have their own copy or work on it collaboratively. You could change who that's for, so another classroom as well. You could have it for all students or particular students, the points it's worth, the due date, and the topic as well. Now you can have that for any, you can customize that for every classroom. It doesn't change in your original. So this is creating a copy in which you can edit in each individual classroom if you want to. Now, you could decide to assign that straight away. You could decide to schedule it to appear at a certain time, or you could just save it as a draft for now. You're going to come back and edit it later. As well, what you could do, you could also, by clicking on this for box here and going to your classroom name, I could also post that into multiple classrooms. So I could post that in my digital skills classroom as well. just by ticking the tick box on the left. Now you can see it now says for 2 classes. I'm going to post this exact assignment to 2 classes. Now once I click this arrow here, I can either post it and assign it now, as in being live straight after I post it, or I can only save as a draft. I cannot currently schedule for 2 classrooms at the same time. Now that's a limitation within Google's user interface, but you can use an app script to do that on the side. But currently Google Classroom does not have that feature integrated, so that's something to be mindful of. So you'd have to reuse in each individual classroom if you wanted to schedule for a certain time. Alternatively, if it's Monday morning, you're putting it on for all of your classes, you can just click on here, all your different classes you want to post it to, and just click Assign. Now by clicking Assign, you'll see once it loads, you'll have a copy in this demo classroom, and I'm going to show you that it also works into my digital skills classroom as well. So you can now see I've got today's work and remarkable lives, that's in there. And I can also go back to my music master classroom and show you it's still in there as well. It's still here and my marks are still the same. And I can also go to my digital skills classroom and I can now see that I've also posted that in here. So that's another copy of that document as well.
What a great way to be able to minimize the amount of work needed by you all through the use of Google Classroom. Hopefully you found this session useful. Do join us again next time for another short and sweet with me and with Ben. Take care.